So let's move on to the next step. So next step is a very major step. We need to create one new virtual machine for our first ESX host, ESX host 01, okay, with the following configuration: VM name ESX host 01. So I'm going step by step over here. Coming back to my desktop, coming to my main VMware Workstation home screen. Here I will say file new virtual machine. So I want to create the VM with the custom or advanced options. I will say next. This workstation hardware compatibility 17.5. This is fine. I will say next. I will install the operating system later. This is fine. And the guest operating system I need to choose as a VMware ESX. So I'm coming here over here. So guest operating system is VMware ESXi 8.0. Okay, because we want to install the VMware ESXi. I will say next, and here I will give the host name as ESX host 01. Okay, and next is a storage location will be our external J drive VMware ESX host folder, whatever we have created in the previous step. So I will go to my J drive, then VMware and ESX host 01. Okay, I will say next. Coming back to my PPT. So virtual processor plus cores we will choose it as 4 just to make sure that our VM performance is up to date. I will say next. Next is RAM. So we need to give the RAM as 48 GB because we want to utilize this ESX host for holding out at least one virtual machine. So it requires good amount of RAM, 48 GB. Okay. So what I'm doing is 48 GB is equal to how much in MB. So simple thing, I will just calculate 49,152. Copy this, paste it over here. Okay, so this is 48 GB. I will say next. Sorry. Next is I will, as of now, I will choose do not use the network connection. I will add it later on in the last screen. So I will say next. Coming back to my PPT. So network adapter we will add it later on as a VMnet 2. Then the IO controller will be para virtualized SCSI. So this is by default selected. So I will say next. So this type will be SCSI. So this is also selected, recommended. I will say next. Now why these options are already selected? Because VMware is detecting that you are installing VMware ESXi. So it is giving the best recommended options from its side. So unless you are having specific hardware requirement in your mind, don't change the default options. So next is SDD will be 100 GB and a single VMDK file. Okay, so I will say create a new virtual hard disk, and here I will change it to 100 GB, and I don't want to split this virtual disk into multiple files. I want to store it as a single file, so store virtual disk as a single file option, and I will say next. Then CD DVD will be ESXi Hypervisor 8.03, that we will select. But before that, what I'm doing is I'm just saving this particular single file, this VMDK file, into a specific location. This is ESXHOST01. Okay, J drive and all. Okay, next. Now in this screen, we need to click on customize hardware and we need to go for this option now. CD DVD. I want to go for this ISO. Okay, I'll choose this one and say use ISO image file, CD DVD, ISO image file, browse, and then I will go to my ISO path. And this is our VMware VMvisor installer 8.0 update 3. Okay, so I'm choosing this one. This is first setting I need to enable because it will boot from this particular VMvisor ISO. And second thing I want to add over here is, as I said earlier, we haven't added the network adapter, so I want to add it. So network adapter, finish, and don't just leave it with the default value. We want to use as a custom VMnet. This is for our primary network connectivity. Why we are choosing VMnet 2? Because this VMnet 2 is already connected to our DC also, if you remember, our Win 2022 DC. So we want to communicate with Win 2022 DC also, this ESX host, right? And now I will say close, and finally I will say finish. Okay, so now my ESX host 01 is created as a virtual machine. Now remember, in a production environment, you will be installing your ESX as directly on a hardware or physical server, but here for the lab setup we are installing ESX host as a virtual machine itself. Although ESX host is a virtual host software itself, but we are using it for the lab purpose. We are installing through VMware Workstation. Okay, I hope I'm clear with this point. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So one more setting, we want to confirm that the CPU should have this virtualized Intel VT XEPT option enable. Okay, so this is very important option to be verified. So I'm going to processors, and here this option virtualized Intel VT EPT or AMD the RVI. Why these options need to be enabled? Because we want to create nested virtual machines through our ESX host. Okay, unless this option is enabled, it will not allow us to create those virtual machines in a nested environment. That means this ESX host is VM itself. Now I'm creating a virtual machine hosting on a particular virtual machine, so nested virtualization. So if this option is not enabled, this particular setting is not enabled, virtualized Intel VT, it will not allow us to create the nested VM. So that's why this option should be enabled. By default it is enabled while creating this VM, but in case if it is not enabled, it will give error later on. So better to verify this particular option before starting this particular VM. Okay, so I will say okay. So now we have created this particular virtual machine. Let's move on to the next step. So next step is start our ESX host VM, and it should boot from your ESXi Hypervisor 8.0 update 3 ISO. So let's start. And you can see now it is loading your ESXi installer. This is 8.0 update 3 ISO. Okay, so now we are installing our ESXi host 01 as a virtual machine through VMware Workstation. Okay, by the time it is booting, let's go to the next step. So we need to monitor the ESX installation initialization process. So let it load. It will take 2 minutes. So the booting has been completed and it is asking us to hit enter to continue. So let's go back to our PPT, and now on VMware ESXi 8.03 installer screen, press enter to continue with installation process. So I will come back here and I will hit enter. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So press F11 to accept the end user license agreement. We'll come back here and let me adjust this, and now I will just press F11. Okay, now it will scan for available hard disk, virtual hard disk, physical hard disk, whatever. So next is ESXi will scan and verify the available devices, and on the next step we need to hit the enter to continue installing ESXi 8.03 on available virtual hard disk. So I will hit enter over here. Next is need to again hit the enter to accept the US default keyboard layout. You can change it if you want to, whatever keyboard layout you want to go for. I will just press enter over here. Now next step is a very important one. We need to specify a new password for our root account and press enter to continue. Now why this root account? So as I said, this ESXi is an open source Linux based operating system, so we require a root password. Just like in Windows there is an administrator account, in Linux or open based system there is a root account. So we need to specify password so that we can log on to this ESXi host later on with the root credentials. So I'm just entering the root password and enter. So next is press F11 to confirm and begin the ESXi 8.0 installation. So finally I'm clicking F11 to start the installation. Okay, so it will just install within 2 minutes. It will not take that much time. Okay, so coming back to our PPT. So this phase is currently going on. We are just monitoring the ESXi host installation, and now you can see over here it will ask us to press enter to reboot the system. So finally I'm just clicking enter. It will shut down and reboot. And again it is loading after rebooting. Okay, so booting has been completed. Our ESXi host 01 installation has been completed. Okay, now this is the first screen whatever it is showing us. So Let's get back to our PPT for the next step. So this particular monitoring the boot process we have just completed. Now let's move on to the next step. So the next step is we need to note down that our ESX is showing some inappropriate IP configuration. So if I am saying over here, it is showing some 169, that means a random IP. So we don't want that. We want a static IP configuration for our ESX host so that we can access it appropriately. So we will go to the next step. So in the next step at ESXi VM console, press F2 and enter the root password and hit enter when prompted. So first of all, we need to click over here inside, and here I'm just pressing on my keyboard, I'm just pressing F2, so it will ask me to enter the root password. So I will just enter the root password which we have specified during the time of installation. And now after entering this root password, it is allowing us to enter the system configuration. So here you can configure different system parameters, like configure the password, then configure the lockdown mode. This will be highlighted after the ESX host is completely installed. Then you are configuring your management network, restarting management network, testing it, then network restore options, configuring the keyboard layouts, troubleshooting options. All those options are available in system configuration menu. But to enter it, you need to press the F2 on the main console and then put the root password. Okay, let's go back to our PPT for the next step. So next step is through your system customization option, configure management network and IP4 configuration. So we need to go to the configure, sorry, it is again and again going to that hibernate mode. So we need to first go to the configure management network option and hit enter, and here we need to go to the IP4 configuration. I'm hitting enter. Okay, so here we need to configure our IP address as a static IP address. So I'm selecting the third option and hitting the space bar. Then it is allowing me to put the static IP over here. So let's go back here and let's see what static IP address we need to enter. 192.168.1.7. So here I'm just putting the static IP 192.168.1.7. Okay, subnet mask is already 255.255.255.0, right? 255.0. This is 24 bits. And default gateway, we need to put our DC system 192.168.1.100. Okay, let's go back to our PPT just to verify. So we have put in the IP, we have put in the subnet mask also, and we have put in the default gateway also, right? So next option we need to enter is a DNS server. So we need to come out of this. So but for saving these changes, I'm hitting enter, and now I need to go to the DNS configuration. Again enter. Again I have to choose use the following DNS, space bar, and here I need to enter my DNS IP. What is my DNS IP? 192.168.1.100. That is our DC IP. If you remember, we have configured it as a DNS server also, and if you remember, we have created our NS records also for this particular ESX host as well as the next ESX host. So that's why I was telling you that creating those host records also necessary. Okay, so primary DNS server is 192.168.1.100. Okay, so what is the next step? we need to now change the host name also to ESXHOST01. I'm coming back here. Now every time for choosing this or changing this option, I need to enter over here inside and then go for the changes. Now I'm just putting the host name, which is ESXHOST01. Okay, and now enter. So this is also done. Okay, our primary DNS is 192.168.1.100 and host name is ESXHOST01. Okay, and one more change we need to do is to disable the IP version 6, because we are not using IP version 6. So I'm going inside again, IP version configuration, enter, and the first option itself is disable. Just enabling it and saying enter. Okay. Okay, so I'm just repeating one more time just to make sure that these changes are correct. First, we have given a static IP, right? The IP4 address. So what was that? The IP4 address 192.168.1.7 255.255.0, default gateway 192.168.1.100. This is the first change. Second change is we have configured our DNS also as a 192.168.1.100. that is our AD DNS server. Okay, and third change is we have disabled our IP6. And one more change I have just missed out, just a minute. We have changed our host name also, right? While doing the DNS, host name also we have changed. This is very important because our ESX host can be accessed through our host name also. Okay, so this is the host name, this is the DNS server, and DNS is getting used for what? For resolving your static host name to IP and IP to static host name, right? So this is also important step. And then last step we have done is we have disabled our IP6 parameter because we don't want to use the IP6 version. Okay, so these many changes we have done, right? Now let's go back to our PPT. Now we need to save these changes. So press escape and then press Y to save these changes. So I'm coming back here, clicking inside, escape, so it will detect that I'm want to go outside. It will ask us to save the changes, so I will press Y and now it will automatically restart to recycle all the changes. Okay, so it will boot again just to make sure that all the changes are getting reflected correctly. By the time it is booting, let's go back to our PPT. So this we have already done. So next step is, once it is getting booted to the main menu again, we need to verify that it's showing the correct IP, that is 192.168.1.7. so let's go back here. Now you can see it is showing the correct host name, it is showing the correct IP static. It was showing that random IP previously, if you remember, right? Okay, so this step is also completed. So next step is, through our Windows 2022 DC system web browser, access ESXHOST01 through following URL. So which URL? HTTPS and the IP of our ESX. What I'm doing is I'm going back here on DC system, and first I will just install the Firefox browser. Okay, so that we can use it as our normal browser to access our ESX host through web browser. Okay, this is a very basic step but still it is a very important step. So let's first install the browser, then I will show you how to access your ESX host to web browser. So it will take 2 minutes. I'm just pausing this video. Once this is installed, I will come back to you with the next step. So now as you can see, this Firefox web browser has been installed on our DC system. So what we need to do, we need to access our ESX host with its IP through our web browser. So I am coming back here, opening this Firefox. Okay, so one more time I have to press one last thing. So okay, now it will ask us to go for the security parameters, accept risk and continue. And you can see over here, this is my login screen for my ESX host. Okay, so ESX a host client. So through this particular login screen, I can log in and access my ESX host. Okay, so let's go back to our PPT first. So when prompted, enter the root account credentials and click login. So I'm just putting username as root and password is our root password of our ESX host, whatever we have specified during the installation, and login. So don't save, don't want to join the CAP, I will just say okay. And now you can see this is a ESX host web browser console, management console. Okay, remember this is not a vCenter console. vCenter is a completely different server altogether. Through the vCenter you can manage multiple hosts in a single platform, but if you are not installing vCenter server for very small environment, if you are having only one ESX host or maybe two ESX hosts, you can manage them individually through your web browser. So this is a basic web browser management console for your ESX host. Okay, I hope I am clear with this step. So it is showing ESXHOST01 and it is showing all those options. So we will go these options one by one in the later practical steps, so don't worry about it. So this is a basic console it is showing for ESXHOST01. So let's go back to our PPT.